There's a tax window closing in 2028, and most retirees have no idea it's even open right now. If you've got a traditional IRA or a 401k, and most folks watching this do, I need you to hear something. Part of that money isn't yours. It never was. The IRS has a claim on every pre-tax dollar in that account, and one way or another, they're going to collect. The only question is whether you decide when and how much, or whether they decide it for you. For a few short years, there's a way to settle up with that silent partner at a discount. But the door closes in 2028, and once it's shut, it does not reopen. I'm Uncle Ray. Let's talk about it. In the next few minutes, I'll show you 3 things. What this closed window actually is, why it matters even if you don't think of yourself as wealthy, and what it could cost you to do nothing. I'll walk you through it with my friends Frank and Carol Carter, a regular couple, not millionaires, so you can see exactly how this plays out at the kitchen table. Now, one thing before we start. This is education only. It is not financial, tax, or investment advice. For your own numbers, sit down with your own CPA. Every situation is different, and yours deserves a real look. All right, let's get into it. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. Roth conversions? That's for rich people, not for me. Set that down for a minute, because it isn't true. If you've got $300,000 or more in a traditional IRA or 401k, this is worth a close look. Not because you're wealthy, but because of what happens to you at 73 or 75, whether you planned for it or not. Here's the thing, nobody tells you while you're busy saving. The money in a traditional retirement account was never a gift. It was a loan. You borrowed a tax break in your working years, and the bill comes due in your 70s, with interest you can't see yet. That's what this window is really about. Paying that bill on your terms while the price is low. So let's be precise. What is a Roth conversion? It's moving money from a traditional IRA, where it's never been taxed, into a Roth IRA, where it grows tax-free from then on. And you pay the tax on that money in the year you move it. In plain English, you're choosing to pay the tax now on your terms instead of later on theirs. Think of a farmer with grain in a barn. The traditional IRA is grain you haven't paid tax on yet. Every year it grows, and so does the tax you'll owe when you finally sell it. A conversion is paying the tax on a few bushels today, at today's rate, and moving them to a barn the taxman can never touch again. That grain is settled. It grows for you, and only you from then on. Here's why doing nothing is a decision too. At age 73 or 75, if you were born in 1960 or later, the government requires you to start pulling money out of that traditional account, whether you need it or not. These are called required minimum distributions, RMDs. In plain English, at 73, the IRS starts writing your withdrawal slip for you, and it gets bigger every year. Here's the trap. If you saved well, that account kept growing. So the forced withdrawal is large. It lands on top of your Social Security and your pension, and it can shove you into a higher tax bracket you never chose. Picture your tax brackets as buckets. A cheap 12% bucket, a pricier 22% one. A big forced RMD overflows the cheap one and spills into the expensive one. So, when is that cheap bucket most open? It's the years after you stop working, but before those forced withdrawals begin. Maybe you're 63, 64, 65. The paycheck has stopped. You may not have turned on Social Security yet. On paper, your income is low. I call these the quiet years. And in plain English, they're the one stretch of your life where your low tax brackets are sitting there, empty, just waiting to be used. Most folks let them sit empty. That's a mistake, because that empty space is exactly where a Roth conversion belongs. Move money now while the rate is low, before the forced withdrawals ever arrive. Now, here's what makes right now special. Back in July of 2025, a law called the One Big Beautiful Bill added a temporary bonus. Under today's rules, folks 65 or older get an extra $6,000 deduction, $12,000 for a married couple where both are 65. But here's the catch. It only runs through tax year 2028. After that, it's set to expire unless Congress steps in and extends it. Now, I'll be honest with you. That deduction doesn't directly widen the room for a conversion. It works later in the math, but it's part of the same door that's closing. And when a door like this is closing, you want to know early, not the year it slams shut. Now, a warning. Because you can overdo this. When you convert, you add income for that year. And there's a tripwire most retirees never see. It's called IRMAA. IRMAA is a surcharge on your Medicare premiums that kicks in when your income crosses certain lines. In plain English, go $1 over the line and Medicare charges you more for the whole year. And here's the cruel part. It's not a ramp, it's a cliff. $1 past the edge and the full surcharge lands. Worse, it looks back at your income from 2 years ago. So, a conversion today can raise your Medicare bill the year after next. That's why you convert carefully. A measured amount each year, filling the cheap bucket, but stopping before the cliff. There's one more reason this matters, and it's the one that's hardest to talk about. Right now, if you're married, you file jointly. 2 people, wide tax brackets, but someday one of you will be gone, and the one left behind often has nearly the same income, now filing as a single person. Narrow brackets, half the room. The tax code has a quiet name for this: the widow's penalty. In plain English, losing your spouse can raise your taxes at the very moment life is hardest. Money you move into a Roth today is money that surviving spouse never has to pay tax on again. That's not just tax planning. That's a kindness you leave behind. Let me show you how this looks at the Carter's kitchen table. Frank is 64. Carol is 63. Frank just retired. They haven't switched on Social Security yet. They're letting it grow. Between them, about $600,000 sits in Frank's old 401k. Right now, their taxable income is low. Those quiet years I mentioned, the Carters are living in them right now. Their cheap brackets are wide open. So here's the plan. Each year, from now until RMDs begin, they convert a modest slice of that 401k into a Roth, just enough to fill the cheap bucket. Not $1 into IRMAA territory. Not $1 they don't have to. They pay a little tax now at a low rate on their terms. Now picture the other path. The Carters do nothing. That 401k keeps growing. Frank turns 73. The forced withdrawals begin, large ones, on top of 2 Social Security checks. And suddenly, they're in a higher bracket every single year for the rest of their lives, paying the taxman on his schedule, at his rate, same couple, same money. The only difference is whether they use the window or let it close. Now hear me clearly, because this is where people slip up. You do not need to convert everything. You do not need to rush it. Trying to do it all in 1 year is one of the biggest mistakes there is. You'd blow right past the cheap bucket into the expensive one. This is a slow, steady, every year job. Your income changes, your balances change, the tax law changes, IRMAA lines change. So it isn't a one-time decision, it's an annual one. Each year, you check how much room is in the cheap bucket and you fill it. No more. And one more rule. Money you convert generally needs to sit 5 years before you touch it freely. Think of fresh concrete. Pour it, then let it set. Don't go walking on it. So, here's what I do this week. Pull out a piece of paper. Write down how much sits in your traditional IRAs and 401ks. Then write down your age and how many quiet years you've got left before those forced withdrawals begin. That number, the years left, that's your window. And for a lot of you, it's smaller than you think. Then take that paper to a CPA who does retirement tax planning, not in April, now, because the most expensive mistake in retirement isn't the wrong move. It's the one you make by default, by doing nothing at all. Now, I mentioned the widow's penalty earlier, and of everything we covered today, that's the one I most want you to understand before it's too late to plan for it. So, that's my next video. When one of you is gone, the taxes go up. And here's exactly how to soften that blow ahead of time. I'll see you at the desk. This is Uncle Ray.